while unscripted or something, but however batshit insane they get, it doesn't affect the show for me. Here's to you, Buffy. And here's to how fucking glad I am this shit isn't getting a reboot now.
Well, that only took 2 years to outtake the video. So you've probably heard by now that Buffy the Vampire Slayer is finally getting a pilot episode for the reboot show that's only been talked about for the last 7 years when it was initially announced by Joss Whedon himself. That quickly found its way into development hell, and finally after the Whedon allegations came out in 2021, the reboot was shelved until further notice. That was until about a week or so ago when news broke that another reboot was not only in development, but had been for several years, was getting a pilot episode, and biggest of all, Sarah Michelle Gellar was returning to reprise her role as Buffy in a recurring capacity. Now, Sarah and Buffy have had a tumultuous relationship since the show ended, to say the least. She vowed never to return to the character, and stated repeatedly that that part of her career was over, the show had ended in 2003, and that was that. Now here we are in 2025, 22 years after the show ended, and she's changed her mind. So, I want to quickly talk about my thoughts and worries about the new series from what we know so far. Buffy and Angel built an incredibly interesting universe over the course of 8 years on the air, and despite hundreds of episodes exploring the intricacies and characters, it felt like we were only seeing the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. The last season of Buffy explored evil as a concept, rather than a physical being they could defeat, but then the show ends. Angel's last season mentions that evil is a presence which is far greater than we could ever know, with conspiracies and other dimensions involved, and then there's the senior partners and the powers that be being the benevolent forces of good and evil, and just when they plan on fighting that great presence, the show gets cancelled. They now have ample room and time to explore those themes further. I mean, let's not forget about the many undeveloped spin-offs after the show had ended, including a solo Giles series which explores his tapping into dark magics as a teenager, which was something the show purposefully avoided exploring because of this potential series. And it was greenlit by the BBC, and has never officially been announced as cancelled, despite the fact that it's been nearly 20 years since we've heard anything now. So I mean, if Anthony Head is still down, they could do it, especially if this series does well. And if it's a prequel series with another actor playing a younger Giles, maybe Head provides a voiceover, kind of what they're doing with Dexter now, which, funnily enough, Sarah Michelle Gellar also stars in, so stranger things have happened. This also gives us the chance to find out what happens after the cliffhanger ending of Angel, and while I think that ending is perfect for the show since we never see what happened next, allowing us to draw our own conclusions, now the story is going on. Do we really think they're going to bring Buffy back and not even mention Angel or Spike, perhaps the two most popular characters from the show, especially during the original run? No, they are definitely going to bring Spike back in some capacity, and considering James Marsters is yet to comment on the new series, despite being one of the most active in the fan community, they are 100% definitely planning on it. Which brings me to my first worry. Now, of course, Joss Whedon isn't involved. It would be complete suicide for the reboot to involve him in any capacity. However, Buffy is his baby. He created the characters, defined the writing style, and set the tone for the whole show. James Marsters even said when asked about a Buffy revival,
"If Joss is helming it, hell yeah. If he's not, hell no."
Now granted that was from before the allegations came out, but that point may still stand, bear with me here. Why would Marsters do a complete 180 on the idea? Well, yeah, there's that, I guess. But also, he said he would never return to the character unless they found a way to digitally de-age him to look how he did when the show was originally filmed. Because he's a vampire. Although they teased the idea of him becoming a human in season 5 of Angel, it never happened. They could change this too, but it was Whedon who knew what went too far in terms of the story and characters. After he left being the showrunner for Buffy at the end of season 5, the show arguably went off the rails a bit in season 6, which is considered to be the most divisive amongst viewers, before completely playing it safe with season 7, which even though I quite like, because it's so stripped back compared to season 6, still suffers a bit from being forgettable. Same with Angel. After David Greenwalt left being showrunner at the end of season 3, it went completely off the rails with season 4. Then, Whedon returned to the project for season 5 after Firefly was cancelled, and that final season is considered to be one of the best of the show's run. You know, say what you will about the man, but he knew the characters, he knew the show, it was his universe. Now, of course, they can combat this by bringing back a lot of the original writing team, people like Jane Espenson, David Fury, Marty Noxon, Doug Petrie, even David Greenwalt, could bring back that original spark the show had, because these people also knew the characters extremely well, and the show would not have been as great without these writers. After Whedon stopped focusing on the project, they continued the show on, and there's a lot of memorable moments, episodes, and storylines in these seasons. One thing that does make me quite optimistic is Gellar's return to the character. As stated by herself on her Instagram page, this has been in the works for a few years now, and they've finally figured out a way to bring the show back, which she is all on board for. So they're not just jumping the gun and going straight to it, and I just keep thinking she wouldn't do this if it wasn't the right way to do it, considering how against the idea she has been for over 20 years. Well, look, I know, there's been a lot of revivals lately from classic 90s and 2000s shows that have been clearly made to cash in on the success of the original shows. These usually don't last more than 2 seasons, some don't even make it past 1. The only thing that makes me more hopeful than these other revivals is that Buffy is not going to be the main focus. From what we've heard, Buffy will be a recurring character throughout the show, with the focus being on a new Slayer, allowing for Buffy to work more in a mentor-like capacity similar to Giles' role in the original show. This means we can focus on the new characters and getting to know them, while still being familiar with the IP thanks to Buffy's regular appearances. It also allows old characters to potentially return too, since they can still be linked to Buffy. And now from what we know, David Boreanaz doesn't seem to be attached to this project, at least for now. However, both Michelle Trachtenberg and Emma Caulfield have spoken out about it, seemingly involved, perhaps in some capacity. Now, Trachtenberg I get, because she played Buffy's sister, makes sense she'd still be around, but Emma Caulfield... In the final episode of the show, Emma Caulfield's character Anya is killed off. This is due to the fact that she never wanted to be involved with any future potential projects related to Buffy. The character of Anya, along with the show, died in 2003, but now it looks like she might be coming back. Okay, sure they can do flashbacks, or retcon that she's still alive because she was a demon or something, but that gets me really worried. One of the things that ruined the comics for me, and why I never took to them or treated them as canon, is because of how quickly they were to bring back dead characters from the show in any capacity. Not just that, kill off characters in the comics and then bring them back again anyway. Look, what the fuck is the point here? In the original show, when a character was killed off, that was it. They weren't going to come back, apart from Buffy herself. For example, Jenny Calendar was killed off in Season 2 to showcase how vicious and jealous was as a villain, and although she returned playing the first evil very briefly in Season 3, she was still dead. This wasn't her. She never came back. And how about an Angel when Doyle dies? That's only 9 episodes into the first season, but yet despite a few mentions, he doesn't come back. There is no happy ending. He stays dead because it was important to the motivation of the characters to keep fighting. So let's just say they bring Anya back. What's stopping them bringing Fred back, or Wesley back, or Jonathan? Then we have a real problem. The ending we knew for over 20 years is royally fucked. Why not just call this Season 8 then, if it's going to undo everything just like the comics did? Let's say the show does well in its first season, then Gellar decides that she's done enough, or she doesn't like it as much as she thought she would, and that mentor role then leaves the show. Remember when that happened in the original show? Anthony Head left the cast in Season 6, only returning occasionally until the end of the show. This is one of the reasons why I think the writers decided to make Season 6 the emotional roller coaster that it was, which then in turn made it a bit of a train wreck, because the characters were lost without his maturity and wisdom to guide them on the right path. Now, it did allow them to grow, and Xander stopped Starkville at the end of the season. Apart from Giles returning at the end of the season anyway, just to do nothing and almost die. That's what I mean. Now we wind back to my original point. Bringing characters back just to do nothing and then maybe die. So then now when I watch the original show again, I know what the original team intended for the story to be, and now I know what it became and was perhaps ruined by in the revival. Look, it's completely possible that the pilot doesn't get picked up and this video was made for no reason at all. Or it could come back and be great, last another 7 seasons like the original show did, and I'll eat my hat. At the end of the day, it's a silly vampire show, but it does mean a lot to people. That's not to say that iCarly didn't, or Frasier didn't, but there's a cultural attachment to Buffy in particular, and its popularity has continued well past the ending of the show, the jokes that might have not aged well at all, and the creator turning out to be a sexist dick and potential pervert. It survived all of that. But this is different. This isn't something behind the scenes or something from the past. This is now. This is the story going on, and I just hope they get it right for the sake of the characters and the great stories that they told us from 1997 to 2004, and now from 2025 onwards. Let's see what happens.